There is a lot to talk about on one of the world's biggest companies and most important stocks. So let's jump right in. We got Steve Kovach out west, Wall Street Journal's Tim Higgins. He's got a new book, by the way, coming out on this exact topic. It is called I War, and MAI Capital Management Chief Market Strategist Chris Grisanti is here on set. Steve, let's start with you. You're out west in Cupertino. Got the numbers tonight. I'm sure tariffs are going to be an issue. We'll see if they go into it at all. But like in layman's terms, what is this legal case and does it matter that much?
Yeah, Brian, it does matter. It matters enormously because the judge ruled yesterday that Apple was in contempt of her order to allow other apps, including Epic's Fortnite, which is the one who originally brought this lawsuit, to guide their users outside of the App Store to make payments and therefore skipping that so-called Apple tax that Apple takes. A lot of allegations throughout this filing that we got yesterday, but among some claiming an Apple exec lied on the stand, saying that he did not know about some internal discussions going on with an Apple that actually did turn out to be happening. She also says Apple withheld evidence that the company was talking about ways to skirt around her injunction when they did not disclose that information to the judge, and just a number of other things. But at the end of the day here, this case has now been referred to for potential criminal contempt charges, not just against the executive who the judge says perjured on the stand during this, but also against Apple itself. Now, Apple tells us they are going to comply with the order. That means pretty soon, and we might start seeing some apps issue updates that allow them to skirt around those App Store payments, therefore putting that lucrative App Store business at risk. By the way, Brian, in the filings, how much money is at risk? Billions. That is what Apple's own notes from these internal meetings that were disclosed yesterday in this court order show that Apple did the math here and said, if we follow this judge's order, we could potentially lose out on billions of dollars. And they found a different way to kind of skirt around it. And the judge is not happy with them and saying, no, you have to listen to us. You appealed this all the way to Supreme Court. Supreme Court kicked it back down to me. You have to listen to me. In her words, this is not a negotiation, Brian.
Steve, just stay there for a moment. Chris, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on Apple here. You know, the stock on a recent winning streak, but faces this challenge potentially to the App Store, has all these questions about tariff supply chain. Maybe it has to raise prices. What do you think about it?
You know, I think Steve is right. There is a large revenue component, but I think it's even worse than that. And Brian, you probably remember from law school. I mean, judges are judicious. That's but she was not judicious, even though over the 5 years of this case, she's been very even-handed and handed Apple a bunch of wins on this case. And now she's really angry. And it's not only a revenue issue, it's a public relations issue. She's referring for criminal prosecution, and she specifies the one guy who she said lied outright. And so it's a big black eye for Apple. The revenue will be important, but it's another brick in the wall.
The market doesn't care, Chris. The market stock's up right now. And I want to be clear. And I haven't read the case. I probably should, but the criminal complaint might be about the perjury of the individual, not about Apple's behavior. I'll make that extremely clear because I don't feel like going to court.
It might be, but she says in the ruling that Tim Cook made the wrong choice by trying to go down this road of kind of denying and not obeying her injunction. So this is a pretty big deal. I think it's more important, though, Brian, it's not so much a stock on the day issue. It's more that it's one more piece of evidence, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, whether it's Amazon, that the complaints are piling up about anti-competitive behavior. And I'm afraid this will lower multiples generally in that group.